There was a time when the Balkans had no borders, no flags, no competing histories, no arguments about who came first. The mountains were already there. The rivers were already carving their paths to the sea. But the people who lived between them did not yet call themselves by the names we know today. And if we could stand there, thousands of years before written history, we might not see Greeks, Illyrians, Thracians, or anyone divided at all. We might see something far more unsettling, a single cultural world stretching from the Adriatic to the Black Sea. This is not a romantic idea. It is an archaeological question. Beneath modern nations lies a much older layer, a prehistoric horizon where settlements shared architecture, pottery, symbols, burial customs, trade routes, and even genetic signatures. Long before classical civilizations emerged, the Balkans were one of Europe's earliest centers of farming culture. Archaeological sites associated with the Starcevo and Vinča cultural complexes reveal settlement patterns that stretch across what are today Serbia, Albania, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, and beyond. These were not isolated villages experimenting independently. Their pottery styles show shared decorative motifs. Their figurines follow similar symbolic traditions. Their housing layouts reveal comparable architectural logic. Even long-distance exchange networks can be traced through obsidian, shells, and copper artifacts moving across vast distances. The Vinča horizon in particular demonstrates an extraordinary level of cultural coherence. Standardized ceramic forms appear across hundreds of kilometers. Symbolic markings, sometimes described as proto-writing, though that remains debated, recur in multiple sites. Metallurgical experimentation begins early here, especially in copper processing, suggesting technological diffusion rather than isolated invention. When mapped geographically, these sites form a continuous cultural zone, not fragmented pockets. To the south and east, the Karanovo cultural sequence reflects parallel developments. Again, pottery typology overlaps. Again, settlement organization follows similar patterns. Again, trade networks link distant communities. The mountains did not divide these populations. They functioned as corridors. River valleys acted as highways. The Danube basin connected north and south. The Vardar and Morava routes tied the interior to the Aegean. What emerges from the archaeological record is not political unity, but cultural continuity. Communities across the peninsula shared material culture in ways that suggest sustained interaction over centuries. The concept of sharply separated ethnic groups simply does not fit this early layer. Instead, we see overlapping networks, fluid, interconnected, adaptive. As the Neolithic transitioned into the Chalcolithic and early Bronze Age, metallurgy intensified. Copper mines in the Balkans became some of the earliest in Europe. Trade expanded. Social hierarchies began to sharpen. Yet even as complexity increased, the archaeological signatures remain interconnected across regions that today belong to different nations. This is the first foundation, before the arrival of historically recorded tribes, before written ethnonyms, before later linguistic differentiation, a prehistoric Balkan world that functioned less as isolated compartments and more as a dynamic, interacting sphere. And this is only the beginning, because when the Bronze Age arrives, the evidence becomes even more revealing. When the Bronze Age solidified across the peninsula, something changed. Not fragmentation, but intensification. The small Neolithic villages gave way to fortified hilltop settlements. Trade routes hardened into structured corridors. Warrior elites emerged. And yet, despite this transformation, the archaeological fabric of the Balkans continued to display striking continuity across regions that would later be labeled as separate civilizations. Fortified settlements begin appearing from the Adriatic hinterland through inland Macedonia and into Thrace. Their defensive walls follow similar construction logic: stone foundations with timber reinforcements. Hill fort placement reflects comparable strategic thinking: control of river valleys, visibility over trade routes, and proximity to arable land. Burial customs show parallel developments as well. Tumuli, burial mounds associated with elite individuals, appear across Illyrian, Dardanian, and Thracian zones. Grave goods often include similar weapon types: leaf-shaped swords, spearheads, and distinctive bronze ornaments that spread widely through exchange networks rather than isolated invention. This period does not show cultural isolation. It reveals a warrior horizon, a connected elite culture that transcended what would later become ethnic boundaries. Metallurgical styles overlap. Decorative motifs on weapons and jewelry echo across vast distances. Even horse equipment, an indicator of social stratification and mobility, displays typological parallels from Western Balkan territories to Eastern Thracian regions. These similarities are not coincidence. They indicate sustained interaction, intermarriage among elites, shared technological diffusion, and perhaps confederative political structures rather than rigid borders. Ancient sources would later describe Illyrians, Thracians, and Dardanians as distinct groups. But archaeology complicates that narrative. Material culture does not shift abruptly at neat geographical lines. Instead, it fades gradually. Pottery transitions subtly. Weapon styles blend. Settlement patterns evolve continuously rather than reset. This suggests that identities were likely fluid, situational, and overlapping, not sharply segregated civilizations. Genetic research adds another layer. Modern population studies in the Balkans reveal deep continuity from the Late Bronze and Early Iron Age layers. One lineage in particular, EV13, shows a distribution pattern strongly centered in the Balkan Peninsula, with expansion phases dating to roughly the same period when Bronze Age social complexity intensified. This does not equate genetics with ethnicity. It does not prove direct tribal labels, but it indicates demographic continuity across millennia within the region. The populations who built those hill forts and buried their elites beneath tumuli were not replaced wholesale. They evolved locally. Trade further unified the peninsula. Amber from the north, Aegean goods from the south, and inland metallurgical products circulated through established corridors. The Vardar-Morava axis connected the Aegean to Central Europe. Adriatic coastal exchanges linked inland tribes to Mediterranean systems. These routes functioned as arteries of cultural transmission. Ideas, technologies, and symbols moved with goods. What we observe is not a single centralized state. There was no unified Balkan kingdom, but there was something else, a civilizational sphere, a shared developmental trajectory, comparable social hierarchies, interconnected elite networks, overlapping mythic motifs suggested later in oral traditions, a regional system that functioned cohesively long before classical historians began categorizing its inhabitants. And then, gradually, external powers began to intervene. This is where everything starts to fracture, not culturally at first, but politically. Because when southern polities expand northward and imperial structures begin imposing administrative lines, the old fluid networks begin to harden. The Balkans were still connected, but history was preparing to divide them. Before we continue, thank you for watching this far. It honestly means a lot. I wanted to take just a few seconds to tell you that we now have our own membership community here on the channel. If you enjoy these deep dives into Balkan and Albanian history, if you feel proud seeing our stories told properly, and if you want to support the channel directly, you can join our members by clicking the button below. Members get early access to videos, behind-the-scenes posts, exclusive polls where you help choose future topics. And for the higher tiers, your name even appears at the end of every documentary. It's completely optional, but it helps me invest more time, more research, and bring you even better content. Let's get back to our story. The first true fracture did not come from within. It came from systems of writing, administration, and imperial organization. When literate polities began expanding into the Balkan sphere, they did something unprecedented. They named, categorized, and divided populations that had previously existed within fluid cultural zones. In the south, emerging Greek-speaking city-states established colonies along the Adriatic and northern Aegean coasts. These were not mass demographic replacements, but commercial and strategic footholds. Trade intensified. Local elites interacted with the Mediterranean world more directly. Greek became a prestige language in coastal centers. Yet inland material culture did not abruptly transform. Archaeology shows adaptation, not disappearance. Indigenous settlement patterns continue. Burial customs persist. What changes is the overlay of written identity, the beginning of recorded ethnonyms applied from the outside. Further north and inland, tribal structures remained dominant. The Illyrian, Dardanian, and Thracian names appear in classical texts, but these designations often reflect how external observers categorized complex local realities. Linguistic evidence suggests a broader Paleo-Balkan substratum, a network of related Indo-European dialects that likely shared deep common ancestry. Hydronyms, especially river names that survive through millennia, show patterns of continuity that predate classical Greek expansion. Certain place name structures repeat across regions later labeled as separate ethnic zones, hinting at older shared linguistic layers beneath later differentiation. This is where interpretation must remain careful. We do not possess extensive written records of these Paleo-Balkan languages. Much of what is reconstructed comes from fragmentary inscriptions, onomastics, and comparative linguistics. But what stands out is that the divisions recorded in historical sources do not align neatly with the archaeological and linguistic continuities beneath them. Cultural evolution appears gradual. Political labeling appears sharper. Then comes Rome. Roman conquest did not erase populations. It reorganized them. Provinces were created: Illyricum, Moesia, Thracia, Macedonia. Administrative boundaries solidified regions that had previously functioned as overlapping spheres. Roads were built not just for trade, but for control. Latin spread as a language of governance and military structure. Urbanization intensified. Citizenship categories introduced new layers of identity. Yet beneath Roman administration, rural continuity persisted. Archaeological surveys in highland regions show settlement endurance rather than abandonment. Burial practices adapt but do not vanish. Genetic continuity studies again indicate local persistence. The people did not disappear. They were integrated into imperial systems. Later, the Byzantine restructuring of the peninsula further deepened administrative segmentation. Themes, ecclesiastical jurisdictions, and fortified centers created new political geographies. Christianity layered religious unity across the region, yet doctrinal and liturgical differences would later contribute to additional cultural partitioning. And then the Slavic migrations altered the demographic surface of much of the peninsula. Linguistic landscapes shifted dramatically in many regions. But even here, the transformation was uneven. Archaeology shows zones of continuity, zones of blending, and zones of replacement. The Balkans did not reset, they absorbed. By this stage, the older prehistoric unity was no longer visible at the political level. Empires had drawn lines, languages had shifted, Administrative systems had hardened identities. What had once been a fluid civilizational sphere now existed as provinces, bishoprics, and later medieval polities. The division was not sudden, it was cumulative. And yet, the deeper layers remained. Because beneath medieval kingdoms, beneath imperial borders, beneath linguistic shifts, the archaeological, genetic, and geographic continuities did not vanish. They were simply buried. Now we reach the final question. If the Balkans once functioned as a shared prehistoric sphere, what does that actually mean for how we understand the region today? If we strip away the political maps of the last 2,000 years, something becomes clear. The Balkans were not born divided. They became divided. Archaeology demonstrates long-term cultural interaction across the peninsula before written history. Genetics indicates substantial demographic continuity from the Bronze Age into the present in many regions, particularly within core Balkan lineages such as EV13. Linguistic reconstruction reveals substrata that predate classical divisions. Geography itself, the river corridors, the mountain passes, the basins that open toward both the Adriatic and the Aegean, encourages interaction rather than isolation. None of this implies a single ancient nation. It implies something more complex, a shared developmental ecosystem. Civilizations are not defined only by centralized states. They can also be defined by interconnected systems, networks of exchange, shared technologies, overlapping cosmologies, and sustained demographic presence. By that definition, prehistoric and early historic Balkans functioned as a civilizational continuum. Local identities existed, certainly. Tribal names mattered, but they operated within a broader matrix of interaction. The fragmentation we recognize today largely crystallized under imperial frameworks. Roman provincial borders, Byzantine administrative themes, later medieval kingdoms, Ottoman sanjaks, and finally modern nation-states progressively solidified distinctions that were once fluid. Each layer added sharper edges to identities that had previously blended across valleys and plateaus. It is crucial to remain scientific here. Unity in prehistory does not erase diversity. Cultural overlap does not mean homogeneity. And genetic continuity does not translate directly into modern political claims. What it does demonstrate is depth, a shared antiquity that precedes recorded conflict. Modern Balkan narratives often begin with division, competing origins, competing claims, competing interpretations of antiquity. Yet the deeper record suggests that before history categorized the region into Greeks, Illyrians, Thracians, Slavs, or others, the populations of the peninsula were part of a long, continuous story shaped by shared landscapes and sustained interaction. The mountains that later marked borders once connected highland communities through seasonal movement. Rivers that now separate states once functioned as trade highways. Even the Adriatic and Aegean seas acted less as barriers and more as extensions of exchange networks. History did not invent the Balkans, it reorganized them. And perhaps the most important scientific insight is this: division is often more recent than continuity. Political fracture leaves clearer textual records. Unity leaves archaeological layers. The deeper we excavate, the less fragmented the picture becomes. Long before modern identities formed, before empires imposed provinces, before languages hardened into national standards, the Balkans operated as an interconnected sphere, diverse, dynamic, but profoundly linked. History drew the lines, prehistory did not. If you want to support the channel even more, memberships are available in the description below. Thank you to all of you who helped this channel grow.